At Peterborough District Hospital, staff in A&E can expect to see close on 70,000 patients every year.
So going to medics?
It looks like probably medics.
On this busy bank holiday weekend, charge nurse and coordinator Ivan Graham is trying to ease the pressure on the department.
Just a bit of a review. We've just had the patients through resuscitation, and while we've been in resuscitation, Majors is still full. So as the coordinator, I need to come out and have a quick look, have a chat with the nurses and the rest of the department, see what's happening. We've still got a serious problem with beds. So there's significant problems with admitting patients to all specialities. It's taken a lot of negotiation with all the departments.
From minor cuts to major trauma, the staff can never predict what the ambulance will bring in next.
That's a pre-alert for a 40-year-old male pedestrian that's been involved in a collision with a bus, so it's pedestrian versus bus. I don't want to activate a full trauma team because from the handover I've received so far, it doesn't sound like we need to activate a trauma team. If when the patient arrives I need to activate a trauma team, that can be activated within seconds.
Good. 1, 2, 3, slide. Fine. Good.
What happened?
Right. When we arrived, the gent was laying on his back with a pool of blood under his head.
Right.
The consultant leading the assessment is military clinician Lieutenant Colonel Rob Russell.
How are you feeling? Well, you've got obviously pain to the back of your head. Any pain anywhere else?
No.
Okay. Any pain in your chest here? That's good.
Remarkably, Paul has been conscious throughout his ordeal.
Okay.
Am I going to be all right?
You're going to be fine. Okay, well, I think you're certainly going to be in hospital overnight. We need to go over you top to toe.
Yeah, sure.
And especially make sure there's nothing wrong with your neck and back. Once we're sure of that, we'll be able to get you to sit up and things.
Right.
Paul's chest is clear and his breathing seems fine. Now it's time to remove the board and examine his spine for injuries.
Ready, steady, roll.
Okay, what I'm going to do now is just feel down your back.
Yeah.
Make sure it's not so. Any pain there?
No.
Peterborough is a Ministry of Defence hospital unit. This means it's a civilian hospital, but it has upwards of 250 military staff.
We're here to keep our skills up to scratch whilst we wait to deploy. We do our sort of very similar to the NHS jobs alongside our civilian colleagues, but there are extra other days when we will have to go away and do training. If you're deploying to Iraq or Afghanistan at the moment, you will have to go away for 2 or 3 weeks prior to actually leaving to train with the unit you're going with, make sure you're up to date with all your military skills. And if you can get the other side. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, stiff as a board, mate. God.
Yeah, here we go.
We're going to need to give this a good clean up, as I say. It's going to need some stitching.
Yeah.
I think we probably will just do a skull X-ray.
Okie dokie.
It's a bit boggy,
Right, yeah.
but we can stitch and clean up before we actually do that. Sorry, bit boggy. Yes, it's boggy hematoma is a very good bit of medical terminology.
Oh, right.
This gentleman's remarkably well for someone who's been hit by a bus. Fortunately, he seems to remember everything about it. He hasn't been knocked out. He has some nasty cuts and bruises, and I'm sure we're going to find some more grazes and things once we get his clothes off. But the fundamentals of airway, breathing, circulation are all plumb normal.
Paul has escaped with only minor injuries requiring stitches, but as a precautionary measure he'll be x-rayed and kept in for observation.
Pop over to number 5, please, at the end. And then,
Back in A&E, a woman who's fallen downstairs arrives by ambulance.
ready, steady, slide. Lovely. How are we feeling? We can get you back on your back.
That way. Story?
She's fallen from stairs at home, from the top to the bottom of the stairs.
Right,
Sick again?
You're going to be sick again?
Okay, roll.
She's going to be sick again.
Due to the nature of her fall, the ambulance crew put Wendy on a board and her neck in a collar to protect her spine and guard against worsening any damage.
How are you doing?
Not very good.
Not very good. Okay. What was our next plan is to get you off this hard board. Any pain in this arm at all?
Just scratches.
Okay, over to you, Ivan.
Okay, ready, steady, roll. Initially coming in, she was obviously very frightened. It's important to try and reassure patients because often the incident is scary enough as it is, then they have an ambulance crew turn up and they end up on a hard board with a hard collar on, and so one of the first things we need to do is establish a quick rapport with the patient, try and put the patient at ease, and explain to the patient straight away what we're going to do so they feel a lot more comfortable.
I know you haven't got any pain in your neck, but we have to take the neck very seriously. Okay, and because you've got this really bad pain in your arm, you might not notice a pain in your neck. Okay, do you remember actually falling or what? Right. So who called the ambulance? Was it someone else at home?
No,
or
I did.
You did?
Oh, good girl.
Good. So did you hit your head at all?
I
You
don't
can't remember. Do you think you were knocked out?
Maybe for a second.
Maybe. Okay. Because she's had a fall down the stairs and she's got a painful injury to her arm, she might not notice that she's got pain in her neck from a possible neck fracture. So we always take necks very, very seriously. If we have any doubts about that, then we will put the blocks back on. We'll have to clear the neck with x-rays. We can't clear it just on asking her questions because of this painful arm that she's got.
As the pain relief starts to take effect, Wendy is taken to be x-rayed. Back in the resuscitation unit, the team prepare for their next patient.
What we're expecting now, we've had a pre-alert message from an ambulance crew on the way in with a young lady who's known to have Down syndrome, who's in severe respiratory distress. So what we need to do now is get ready for this, prepare the room, check our equipment, make sure that we have sort of the team members all briefed and ready to go.
Such running at about
Right.
60.
Did you have to assist ventilation at all? It was. Okay, we got sinus tachycardia on the ECG. Yeah. Just want to get Mum in because Mum's important here. The best thing we can do for her is have you in here to reassure her. So actually, it's worked. It's Rachel, I'm just going to hold your wrist.
Okay, darling.
To help him plan a course of action, Colonel Russell first needs to find out about Rachel's medical history.
Which team was she under?
I can't remember.
You can't remember. But it was the adult.
I started to panic. I panicked.
Don't worry.
Okay, darling, okay.
You're all right.
Fortunately, Colonel Russell is able to speak to Rachel's doctor directly.
She's seems to be recovering from it. She's still quite blue, but she's a lot better than she was when the ambulance was called. I think she briefly had a respiratory arrest. The score is this young lady has quite a complicated heart problem that she's had since birth. As a result, despite the fact she's 21, she's actually still under the children's doctors, and that's who I was just speaking to, because they're really the experts on these weird and wonderful heart problems that come through. From our point of view, she's immeasurably improved from what she was when the ambulance was called and when the ambulance first arrived. So all we're going to do is keep a very close eye on her, and we're actually going to ask the children's doctors to take her over, and we'll probably move her down to the children's ward.
X-rays now show that Wendy, who fell down the stairs, has fractured her arm in 2 places. So charge nurse Joseph Cato is preparing to set her arm in plaster.
Away from your chest.
Go slow, Brian.
Yeah, we'll go as slow as possible.
Don't squeeze the elbow.
You hold on to me. You have to. Swear at me if you want to.
Shush, please.
How does that feel?
Wendy was kept in for observation and discharged the next morning. Her plaster was removed after 6 weeks. After having the wound on his head stitched, X-rays revealed that Paul had a broken finger. This was put in a splint and he was allowed home. Rachel was transferred to the Specialist Heart Hospital in London, where she was given a life-saving operation. She's now recovering well. It's been a testing day for the patients and their families. But for Charge Nurse Ivan Graham and Colonel Rob Russell, it's been business as usual.
The thing that I like about emergency medicine is the variety. Another satisfying aspect of the job is making a difference to patients, but also making a difference to the department. Pulling the doctors and nurses together as a team.
Motorway Fire Station, Northampton, and Greenwatch are on duty. This is one of 22 fire stations in Northamptonshire. There's one pump and the county's only specialist emergency rescue tender. As the alarm sounds for the first emergency call-out of the shift, Watch Manager Ken Brand mans the pump.
102 mobile 21 motorway, grass fire between junction 15, Newport Pagnell, North.
I've been in the fire service 30 years. I left school and joined the Army, the Royal Artillery, at 17 and did just over 6 years. When I left the Army, I joined the fire service, which is what I'd always wanted to do.
Southbound on the M1, they can see the incident, but first they need to get onto the northbound carriageway.
Who's in charge?
Station manager, how is it? Yeah. We've got 2 big cattle feeders underneath.
Yeah.
We've put one out already. We're moving back this way. Just need your water, really. Okay.
Yeah, okay, we'll transfer that.
We found out that there was actually a tunnel underneath the M1 where a farmer actually has some cribs that he puts hay and straw in to feed his animals, and it was this feed that had caught fire. It was creating a lot of smoke and causing some confusion and some danger on top of the motorway. One of the problems we have with fires next to the motorway is the smoke spreading across from whatever fire it is and causing a hazard by obscuring the vision of drivers.
Getting down the motorway embankment is something of a scramble, but with the hose reel hanging over the bridge parapet, the fire is soon under control. Connecting tanks with the other fire engine, Motorway's pump provides the much-needed water.
This is 1800 litres we'll transfer across. If they require any more, we could always go down, fill up from a fire hydrant or from a lake or a river and bring the water back to them. It's what we call ferrying water.
The next job is to find the nearest hydrant and replenish the empty water tank. Back at the fire station, the crew of the emergency rescue tender are practicing their skills. Sheldon Fenning has been in the fire service for 20 years.
The emergency tender's a specialist vehicle, and it differs because it doesn't carry water. It's a rescue vehicle. So anything that involves rescue, car crashes, planes, cows, humanitarian services. The HIAB is the crane on the back of the vehicle. It allows us to lift cars, lift horses or cows out of ditches, and it's a very good tool. It has a 2-ton winch on it, so we can put equipment over bridges. So if we've got an incident on the railway, we've got a railway trolley where we can lower down onto the track and push equipment up the line.
The pump has barely got back to Motorway before the next emergency call-out.
Okay, we're going to an area of Northampton called Duston, where there was until recently a large ball bearing factory called British Timken, an international company. Well, I can see the smoke from here. Change of location, it could be Limehurst Square. Is there a Tesco quick shop there now? Yes. Yeah, well, it could be near there by the church and the Tesco's. They're getting multiple calls for this, and none of them are that certain about its location, so we're talking somewhere in a 1/4 mile radius at the moment of where the original one came from. But thankfully there's lots of smoke there, so we'll follow that. That's always a good indicator of a fire.
It turns out that the site of the British Timken factory is now under development for housing. It's an area of several hectares, surrounded by security fencing. The fire appears to be somewhere inside.
Hold on, this could get a bit rough.
The only option is to take the fire engine off-road.
Fire engines aren't really made to go off-road. They're quite heavy, They're low slung in certain places, and they have big water tanks on them with slopping around all over the place. So we have to be very careful where we take them. Thankfully it's dry. In wet weather that would have got bogged down and we would have been recovered. We probably wouldn't have taken that route at all. But it's not unusual to take some time to actually locate a fire and get as close to it as we can. That was unusual today because of the size of the place. But there are other fires we go to where we can see it, we just don't know how to get to it. So we go round and round until we find it.
I want to stop it coming in further this way. Bring it further up, hose reel through here and get beaters as well.
It turns out that the fire is at what used to be a beautiful bowling green attached to the factory's social club. Leading with the hose reel is crew manager Sean O'Neill.
Even though we'd made quite an effort to get as close as we could, you know, across that dirt track, we still weren't that close, so we decided to use a hose reel because it was spread over quite a large area, so we needed to move about quite a bit. If we'd have had to augment the supply, say from a hydrant, obviously for George, who was a pump operator, that may have become a problem because he would have had to go to the street, which would have mean going over the fence somehow. So if he'd have had to get extra water, we would have had to go to the street nearby and perhaps cut through the fence or even go over the top of it.
Exactly how a bowling green pavilion and the surrounding grass spontaneously combust is difficult to explain, but Ken has his suspicions.
It could be children playing about, or it could be anybody playing around, but in this weather it could also be maybe magnification of the sun's rays through glass. There's plenty of glass and bottles laying around, so I couldn't really say to be certain. My instinct would go with my first impression.
With the fire out, the team start packing up, but back at the fire station, the crew of the emergency tender have had a 999 call to go to a road accident. It goes immediately to all accidents where people are reported trapped. It's considered better to get there and not be needed, rather than set off afterwards when it may be too late. It's the wrong time of day to have to get through the traffic. This makes it all the more challenging for driver Mark Notley.
People tend to panic when we're driving the fire appliance and just stop. That could be, you know, just stop at a set of traffic lights, which isn't always the best idea, because if there's two lanes and there's two lanes of traffic, they're just stopped, they're not going to get out of the way. Obviously we don't want people to endanger themselves, but try and get out of the way for us, but in a safe manner.
As they get closer to the accident, a message comes over the radio advising them that the emergency tender might be needed at another accident.
At the moment we're going to one RTC with one person trapped. At the same time there's been an RTC on the motorway involving a lorry and a person possibly trapped underneath the lorry. If we get to the first one and they get them out, we may still get a detour to the other RTC.
They arrive to find that the casualty has been successfully cut free, and their injuries are now being treated by paramedics from the air ambulance. It's now going to be a quick turnaround and a high-speed drive to the M1.
The incident on the motorway is more serious than the one we've just been to. They could manage with the resources they've got at that RTC, so we've been redeployed to the motorway. So we're going against the flow of traffic we just came from to go to another incident. Hopefully it's not too serious and we'll get there and do some good.
The emergency tender covers the whole county. A fire appliance can get to an emergency within 5 or 10 minutes, based in the whole of the county. If you're riding the emergency tender, it could possibly take you an hour and a quarter to get to the furthest points of our county. Sometimes the rescue has been successful prior to you getting there. So sometimes you'll drive for 50 minutes and then they'll say 105, which is our call sign, you are no longer required. At that point, we turn round, drive back to the station.
Hello.
As they approach the M1 slip road, the call to stand down does indeed come through, and they return to station. Darkness falls, and all seems quiet, but not for long. This time it's the pump which turns out.
We're going to a retirement residential home It's in the town centre. The town centre pump will be there first. Again, we're backing them up.
There's no immediate sign of smoke or fire, but the risk to life with so many elderly residents, many of whom will be asleep and unaware of what's going on, means that Ken and the watch manager of the other pump must urgently get to the root of the problem.
Okay, no fire. Marvellous. Let's go.
Eventually, a fault is traced to an unoccupied room and the alarm can be silenced.
They give us a code.
With everything in the building as it should be, Greenwatch returned to base.
Over the years, you know, I've been to quite a few incidents, a lot of road traffic collisions, because obviously this station's got the emergency tender, and I've always found that aspect of the job quite rewarding, you know, and that does give you a large degree of satisfaction that you've made a difference to somebody.
I do get a lot out of it. It's the only job I've ever wanted to do. My father was a fireman. I wanted to be a fireman. Every time he brought his bike at home and could smell the smoke on it, and I couldn't wait to become a firefighter. And when I did get in, I was quite happy to stay here for the rest of my life.